Welcome to the Be Real podcast with me, Bobby Maximus, and that guy, Joe Cebula. Today, we are going to give you the real talk. It's what we do on this podcast. No lies, no gimmicks, no magic pills, no 3 easy payments of $9.99. And honestly, we're just going to tell you the truth. And that is a real value these days because everyone's lying to you. No one wants to tell you the truth because it hurts your little feelings. Everyone's sensitive. Nobody wants to look in the mirror and do what we call ruthless self-assessment. And today,
well, it doesn't sell, Bobby. It's hard to make a living trying to get people to actually, be honest with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're crazy. People come at us all the time. We tell you have to work out every single day or exercise every single day, and people think we're crazy because they've been filled with the idea that 2 to 3 days a week is enough, that if you're sad on a Friday night, that it's okay. You can eat your feelings and no one should judge you for that. Like, that's the world we live in, Joe, where everything is, we used to say this a long time ago, everything's T-ball these days. Everybody gets a medal. Everybody gets a participation award. If you take your kid to their soccer game, unless it's a high competitive level soccer game, there's no winners and losers. Everyone tried their best. And honestly, I think it's a real disservice to people because I think people get in the real world, Joe, and they've been raised to believe that everything's a tie. Nobody wins. It's not about competition. It's about feeling good. And then they get into the real world and they find out that, yeah, you put in a resume in, but nobody cares. There's only one job opening and 99 people are not getting their job, that they get rejected from the university that they want to go to, that they get rejected from the job that they want. And it's a real slap in the face. I know a lot of kids that have not faced real failure until they're 20 years old. Like, how do you deal with that as an adult?
We do a terrible, terrible job of teaching our kids about this. Like the whole system that we have, especially you mentioned youth athletics and doing participation trophies. We really do a disservice to our youth athletes when we cram them into soccer 11 months out of the year from the moment that they're 5 years old until they're in college. And then we expect that somehow they're going to become good multi-sport athletes when they've been literally playing the same sport every day, all day, their entire lives. And again, you're throwing them into these competitive leagues when they're not ready for competition. We're not teaching them how to play the game. We're not teaching them how to train for the game. We're not teaching them anything about how to take care of their bodies outside of that one sport. And then they jump into another sport they don't like it. Why? Because they're not good at it. They're not getting awards all of a sudden because they've already pigeonholed themselves. And so this whole system is exactly this. It leads to this moment of like, if you haven't learned how to be a competitor in a competitive field, it's a slap in the face. It's an absolute rude awakening when you fill out that application and you don't get the job. It's like, well, aren't I good enough?
Well, and the big part of it is they're coddled, right? Like, parents drive them everywhere. There's no cuts. You got to pay to play. If you're paying enough money, you're on the team, and you've never faced real adversity. Well, what happens when the big bad world comes and then you're not good and then you do get cut and then you can't make it, or you've been babied your whole life to be a soccer player and then you hit 18 and you figure out you can't make the university team. You can't make the college team. And then you're stuck.
I see this a lot in gymnastics where you've got, a group of young girls and they're all training really, really hard and you all got potential. You're going to be the next Olympic team. And then one of you gets hurt. And then it's like, you're dead to that coach. They don't have time for you. You're not strong enough to carry their name into that next level of competition. And it's like, that's where your career ends.
There's actually a stat.
You find out fast.
Yeah. There's a stat for this. How many kids do you think make the NBA? Sign an NBA contract out of 1 million kids that play basketball?
Good Lord. How many players are in the NBA?
4. For 1 million kids that play competitive basketball in the United States,
380 million human beings live in this country.
Make the NBA.
Yeah.
So I get that you are the best player, or your son, because this, like a 9-year-old's probably not listening to this podcast. But I get that your son is 9 years old and he's tearing up your local rec division or your local rec league. I get that your son dropped 10 the other day in an intramural game. Probably not. The chances of making the NBA are statistically zero. That's what 4 out of a million is. Do the math on a calculator. It's actually, I'll tell you the percent joke, because you know I like my math. I don't even know if this is going to work.
Yeah, just get
try
that.
this out. 4 divided by 1 million times 100. There's a 0.0004 chance that you're going to play in the NBA, or that your kid is going to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
So if your kid's been given everything their whole life, you bought them the best jersey, the best shoes, the best whatever. And this isn't meant to be a parenting episode, but the point is you didn't know your kid's never going to know how to fail. Like, and that's a really, really important thing. I think it's good for kids to try out for a high school sport at 14 and get cut. Like, no, you're not good enough. You got to find something else. But this leads into the topic of today's podcast, Joe. Everyone's dealing with stuff with kid gloves, and we are surrounded by a bunch of people who are 40 years old and they're miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely miserable. You hear it all the time. On the one half, it's toxic masculinity. And on the other side, I sent you a couple of reels. There's this like backlash almost against toxic femininity, right? Yeah. But what I'm hearing is everybody's toxic. Everybody's miserable. Everybody is unhappy. And honestly, nobody knows what to do about it. Because society.
Well, and who's reaching out to these people are the vultures. It's the Andrew Tates of the world. You know, they found a way to profit off of that sense, especially with young kids who are seeing their dads go through this. Like, I don't want to be miserable in my 40s, and so I'm going to do completely different.
You have men paying tens of thousands of dollars to go to retreats for the weekend, get sprayed with a water hose, get beaten and told how stupid they are. And they're paying this money because it's the only way that they can feel alive for 2 minutes of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, some of that goes back to what we talked about earlier, how you're raised. You were never raised to struggle. You weren't raised to fail. Like the boomer generation, if you will, our parents, they wanted to make everything easy for us. They wanted to give us every advantage that they didn't have. And coming from a place of a parent, I want to do that for my kids. I want them to have a better house than I have. I want them to have more money than I have. I want them to have more opportunities than they have. But with that, I think comes a certain amount of the silver spoon syndrome, where you're raised with a silver spoon in your mouth. You don't really know what it's like to grind. You don't really know what it's like to hustle. You don't know what it's like to know when your next meal's coming from, or like everything is just given to kids. Kids these days don't even have to make their own fun.
Well, think about this, because we've talked about this as far as like this phrase, which I love, is this ruthless self-assessment. But if you've ever been weighed, measured, and found wanting, the current thinking that I see is that's just not for you. Give up. As opposed to, well, what was lacking, and can I do something about it, and then try again? You know, if there's one thing that's holding me back, can I address that thing? And I think that's where real power lies. That's where self-actualization lies, of saying, I'm not just limited by what I bring to the table right now today. I can go and I can fix things or change things or approach things differently and find new levels of success. So a door being shut in your face isn't the worst thing that can happen. The door being shut in your face and you never addressing the reason that door got shut in the first place is far worse.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing you can do is get rejected. Like sometimes that can like wake you up or kick you in the pants. But back to the thing, we're filled with a world of 40-year-olds that are miserable, Joe. And I say 40, it could be 35, it could be 45, that are really just looking for purpose. And you might resonate with this. You're in a job that you don't like, or that you don't love, or that you're not passionate about, or it's just a means to an end. You don't necessarily hate it, but you're doing it because it pays the bills so you can live on the weekend. And there's a lot of people who live Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, Joe, praying for the weekend. Like we talk about it all the time, but Wednesday's hump day. And what's hump day? It's like, oh, I am just so grateful that the weekend's coming, that I don't have to show up for work, that I can check out, that I don't got to go on with my miserable life. And then you get to the weekend and you're happy for those 2 days. But you're not happy for those 2 days, because what happens when you're in the working world? You spend your weekend, Joe. Let me tell you how your last weekend went. You had 48 hours to do 7 loads of laundry, go to a gymnastics contest, go to a soccer game, and go to a dance recital, to do landscaping, to cut your lawn, to clean up after yourself, to food prep for the week. And then it's Sunday night and you're miserable because you have to go to work Monday morning, and all you do is talk about how bored you are. And it's because you don't have 2 things, right? A, you don't have a real purpose, which we're going to talk about this podcast. But then 2, you were given everything your whole life. Monday, when you were bored, your parents took you to Chuck E. Cheese. Tuesday, when you were bored, your parents took you to the trampoline park. Wednesday, when you were bored, they took you to your soccer game. Thursday, when you were bored, you were taken to a park. Whereas certain kids were raised, you're bored, go outside and find something to do.
Yeah.
Right. And that becomes a real problem for people, Joe. Because they're not.
And I think there's also like this right here, right?
Yep.
Of you get instantaneous entertainment, information. Like it's right there at your fingertips all the time. And so if you're sort of burnt out on the phone and you're sitting still, that sense of I'm missing something pops up, and it cannot be instantly gratified. You cannot instantly fix it. It's something you have to work for. And like I said, it's like this door being shut, and you're just like, well, I guess it just ain't for me.
You're just done. So let's talk about why working out is so important to solving this problem, right? So the first thing I want to say, Joe, is it starts at childhood. I'm not putting down a lawyer by saying this. I'm not putting down a financial analyst. I'm not putting down somebody that works in sales. But I promise you, if I go ask my 4-year-old, if I go ask my 7-year-old what they want to be when they grow up, they're not going to say, I want to work for a public audit firm like Deloitte. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to work for Goldman Sachs. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to crunch numbers and sit at a desk all day. This is not what they're going to say. You're going to get answers like a police officer, a firefighter, an astronaut. I want to be a painter. The postman was delivering letters. How fun would it be to deliver people mail all day? You could make people happy. There's actually a story about this, Joe. My English teacher told me. There was a guy who was the dean of Oxford University, and he was miserable, absolutely miserable, but had one of the most prestigious jobs in the world, was rich, had everything you could seemingly want. He was going home from work every day unhappy. And so his wife asked him, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to be a postman. I want to drive my bike and I want to deliver people the mail. And she was like, why don't you go do it? So he quit his job at Oxford, went down to the post office, put in a resume. I would have loved to have been the person that received that resume. You know what I mean? Like, you're the what? Like, this is anyway, he rides a bike, delivers mail, and is just as happy as a clam because you're doing something that you thought had purpose as a kid.
You know what this reminds me of? This actually reminds me of Office Space. Because through the whole film, all the characters, they're miserable. In this office environment. And the whole movie is, it's a comedy about how terrible office culture can be. But at the end of the movie, the dude is working with his neighbor as like a construction guy, and he's perfectly happy. He's outdoors. He's like doing manual labor, but it's way more satisfying for him. And I love that little punchline at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like we are very much just overthinking it. It's not Mondays that suck. It's your job. It's your life. It's everything about that. And you need to go about things differently.
And it's funny you say construction, because I promise you there are tons of 6 and 7-year-olds that would love to drive like a John Deere tractor for work. That would be fun. They would love to build.
Well, they have those parks now where you can like go in and just drive like heavy equipment for an hour, right?
They do they really, really, really want to put a suit and tie on every day and go to work? Now, you might like things about that job, but my point is it wasn't what you dreamed to do at 7 years old.
Yeah.
So now
it's not heroic.
No.
I think kids like heroic things,
They do. And as a man, you're meant to do physical things. You're meant to have struggle. You're meant to have goals. And we're just showing up day after day after day, punching the clock, and you're not really doing anything physical, you are miserable. And that leads us to working out. And it's why there are so many men, Joe, that get involved in masters jiu-jitsu. It's why there are so many. You ran a CrossFit gym, middle-aged men that get involved in CrossFit because it's like a fight. It's hard physically. It challenges you. You fail. You get that excitement, that exuberance. There's nothing like your first 6 months in a CrossFit gym because everything is new. And you get your ass handed to you every single day. And you feel like you have purpose, and you feel like you have direction, and you get all the struggle that you're meant to have versus either manufacturing struggle or going down a rabbit hole of a bunch of bad behaviors, like constantly playing parlays in FanDuel or whatever other betting organization you're using, engaging in booze, alcohol, other type of behaviors. Like, it's so much more productive to give people something to work for, or a hobby, if you will.
Yeah, I think that the real secret to exercise as an outlet for that is that it is not instant. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, where if you go to the gym 3 times this week, you're not going to see a difference in your physique. You know, you're not going to wake up on the 4th morning with 6-pack abs and like the fitness of an Olympic caliber athlete. What you find is that you hurt, you're sore, you're tired, and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere. And what you learn by sticking with that process is that it does pay off, that it is worth it. My old taekwondo coach used to have this thing. We would talk about getting up and, running 3 miles at Carver Hawkeye Arena and then doing sparring practice 3 days a week. And he's like, it is a harder life compared to all the other college kids that are going out drinking and carousing around town and partying. Having that discipline is hard, but it's worth it. And it is 100% worth it, because further down the line, when you are working that job because you got to make ends meet, when you are making career moves because you're trying to go somewhere, you know that you have that discipline. You know that you can let everybody else have all the fun in the world, and you can just kind of dive in and stay focused and get to that next spot. But like you said, then you get into your 40s and there's just nowhere really left to climb. There's no real challenge in front of you other than, are you prepared for your retirement?
Well, and here's the other thing. Let's face it. As much as you think you're a boss, as much as you think you're the man, as much as you look down at your fancy whatever watch you're wearing, a Rolex or a Rockwell or like whatever fancy watch you have, and you think you're the toughest guy in the universe, you are absolutely out of control. You have zero control of your life. The economy can tank. Your boss can lay you off. You can get fired. You can get sued. I understand, because you wear a big fancy watch and a suit, that you think you're tough, but there are people like me out there that will strangle you in under 2 seconds. Like, it's funny, Joe, I see these guys come into jiu-jitsu, and because they have a bit of money, because they think they're tough, because they think they boss around people at an office, they come in and they're ready to go because their mentality is going to carry them through. And some 22-year-old blue belt just tears these dudes apart. Like, you've seen it. It's hard. Like, somebody is all over you and holding you down. The point I'm getting at is, you don't have any control in most areas of your life. I say this all the time. It's part of my lecture series, but I talk about it in my book. You're a perfect driver, Joe. You check your blind spot. You have your what is it, like 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock or whatever. You got your hands in the perfect place and you're driving. It's 10 and 2, just like this, right? You check.
You're supposed to do 3 and 6 now, because apparently the airbag's going off. I don't know.
Okay, whatever it is, 3 and 6, 10 and 2, 9 and 15. I don't care. But you're a perfect driver and you are parked at a red light. Somebody can rear end you. There goes your perfect driving record. You could be the perfect spouse, and your husband or wife could leave you because they're not happy. You could be perfect at work, and what happens? The company lays you off. And I don't care what you say, there's no company loyalty anymore. You will get laid off in a minute if it's good for the bottom line. You've been taken care of for 20 years. The company goes public. The shareholders will lay you off, and you're out there.
You know why companies don't offer pensions anymore? Because they're just not, they're too expensive. It's just cheaper to put you on a 401k and fire you when you get,
and you're just done.
No longer economically viable, right?
So there's no loyalty anymore. So you could get fired. Working out, and this is the real value. Yes, I know you want to look good. I know you want the six-pack abs, capped shoulders. And yes, there's a benefit that goes along with that, and everybody wants to look good. But the real benefit of working out, and this is why you need to do it every day, it's having a goal. It's working through failure. It's eventually winning, and it's the only area of your life where you have complete and utter control. I can't promise you you're going to be in the Olympics. I can't promise you you're going to be in the NBA. We went over the math on that, forward of 1 million kids. But I can promise you, if you show up every day, if you work hard, if you watch what you eat, if you put in some genuine effort, you will be better tomorrow than you are today. You'll be better in a month than you are today. You'll be better in 2 months than you were a month ago. Joe, you will improve. Every single person that came in your gym that worked hard improved. That is 100% in your control. And I really think there's something about that that's life-saving because it gives you an outlet. It gives you purpose. It gives you hope. It teaches you about failure. It gives you that struggle that you're really missing. And if people focused on that as opposed to just having a six-pack, if they focused on the build, if they focused on you hear about focusing on the journey, not the destination. They focused on the little wins in the gym. You've seen people, it feels really good to PR your deadlift. If you don't know what a PR is, it's when you get a new record. So you could deadlift 200 pounds, and now you deadlift 215 pounds. You got a new PR, you hit a new personal best. It feels really good to get personal bests. People love it. It excites people. It makes them happy. And you know what they do, Joe? They go on the forums on the internet. The forums are still a thing. I guess it's Instagram now or YouTube or whatever, but they go on Instagram. They brag about it. They tell their friends. They go harass their office workers, and they're like, oh no, this guy's talking about his fitness again. There's nothing worse. It's funny. There's nothing worse getting stuck on a flight next to a person that loves fitness or loves jujitsu so much that they got to talk about it all the time, right? It's their thing, but it gives them real purpose and it makes them really happy to the point they're not trying to pay somebody to spray them in the face with a water hose and degrade them for a weekend.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. You absolutely hit the nail on the head with the word hope. And I know it sounds super hokey, but this is something that I actually spent a lot of time considering because I list 5 core values and I learned them doing martial arts. So courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, indomitable spirit. I teach these to my kids. We refer back to them, when their behavior is in question. I'll be like, was that very courteous? Are you showing integrity with this? So it becomes a parenting, even just a coaching moment. But there's a difference between perseverance and indomitable spirit. And the way that I explain it, it is hope. Because you can show up at the gym every day, but if you don't really think that you're going to get anywhere, you're not going to attack it with the same spirit, right? When you have that indomitable spirit, no matter how hard that struggle is, you still have that thing that you're holding on to. You still have that notion that I might fail at this every single time. I only need to win once. My old sword master used to have this thing because I have never scored a point on him. And he's like, you probably never will because he's just that good. I mean, he's like a 3-time world champion. He's a national treasure of the country of Korea. And so trying to score 1 point in a sparring match on this guy is a tall order. But if I ever did, then I can legitimately say that I scored on a guy that I had no business scoring on. I am so good. If I walked into any school in the world and said I scored a point on Master Jun, they would bow down and let me teach their class. They might hand me the keys to the dojo.
Besides that, do you know how good that would feel?
Yes.
Like think about when you have kids, the first time they're able to do a pull-up, how excited they are.
Yeah.
The first time they score a goal in soccer, like that's what you're missing when you're in office, because what you're doing, you're working for somebody else. You're lining somebody else's pockets. You're all about their bottom line. No matter how much they tell you they love you, you're about putting money in their pocket so they can buy another car or go on another vacation or line their pockets. And you've got no purpose. You can take that purpose back with working out. And that to me, Joe, is I'm seeing my 15-year-old go through it right now. He does his pull-ups, he does his dips, he does his push-ups, he does his stuff. He's like, Dad, look at the new muscle line in my shoulder. And it's like, yeah, that's cool from a look standpoint, but there's some part of it that he's like, I built this. I did this. You didn't buy this for me. He doesn't say that, but you didn't buy this for me. You didn't. And here's the great equalizer. Money can't buy it. Now, money can get you a better trainer. Money can get you a better meal plan. Money can maybe get you some drugs or whatever, but you still have to go do the work. And that's why there are all kinds of rich people in the world that I see that are not fit. Like if it was as easy as being rich, and people will say, oh, it's easy when you're rich. If it was easy as being rich, every single person, and you can name a whole list of celebrities you see that are unfit, they would be fit if it was that easy. It's the one thing.
If there was one Hollywood secret and you had unlimited resources, you would know the secret.
It's the one thing in the world you can't buy and somebody cannot give to you. Like you have to get in there and get dirty and get the work done with your own two hands. And again, I think there's real value in that, Joe. Like I think there's real value
it's an
in
equalizer.
Taking what you want, building something, being proud of it, being excited. Like that's what your purpose is. And so I tell everybody, you're miserable, you're unhappy. Stop looking to these gurus on the internet who are yelling at you about guns and Bibles and Jesus, and they want to scream at you and put you down, and you got to be a man, and you got to eat their faces off, and blah, 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 blah. You want to save your life? Start within. Get yourself a hobby. Start working out. Do some self-work. Engage in self-improvement. I promise you. And by the way, working out can be all of those things. I promise you, your life will be a lot better. You'll be a lot happier. You'll be a lot healthier. You'll have a lot more energy. You'll be excited. You'll have a purpose. You'll have a struggle. You'll have a fight. Like it's literally the equivalent of going to build something. Like it's funny, Joe, someone was talking to me the other day about like, you know, men's purpose, and like, it was about going to church. And it's like, you want to get men to church. Men don't want to go sit in a church for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon. You want to get people to come to church because church numbers are dwindling. He's like, have them do a project like raise a barn, have them build something, have them come together as a community and have a purpose, and then like slip the sermons in surreptitiously. But it's why, Joe, some of these camps we talked about that people go to, you got to build your lodging when you get to camp. That's like the first thing you do on day one. We were talking about it would be pretty awesome to have a workout community where we would have people fly in, pay us thousands of dollars to yell at them and stuff like that. That would be fun. But day one, we're going to erect like a structure and put together a gym. We're going to build it and then we're going to use it. Like that gives people purpose and hope and fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's also that sense of it's a project, and that everybody has something that they can contribute. And I think when you're considering like, well, okay, I'll start an exercise program, I think people put it in their mind that they have to do whatever The Rock is doing, or that they have to find some celebrity trainer and they have to dedicate 4 hours a day, and who has the time, who has the resources. And it's as simple as like, guys, this is free. You cannot buy this. You have to just go out and take it. And it's right there. You've got gravity, you've got the earth, and you've got your body weight. Get to work. And as time goes on, as you develop the discipline of showing up and doing work, you'll start to understand the value of like different pieces of equipment, or the value of having a coach or a trainer present while you're working out. Like you can figure a lot of that stuff out as you go, but you just have to start moving, start building.
I have an idea for you, Joe.
What's up?
Here's what you're going to do if you're listening to this podcast. Stop looking at these gurus. Don't pay $10,000 to be part of a mastermind. Don't pay $10,000 to go to a group and have people yell at you. Don't pay $10,000 to get a life coach told all the things you're doing wrong. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to build something yourself. There's this movie called The Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You should really, really watch it, Joe. I know you've seen it. It's like a film buff, but it's a Kevin Costner movie. And what does he do? He builds a baseball diamond in a cornfield as like an ode to his father. And anyway, it's an incredible movie. I won't spoil it for you, but there's a really deep message in that. If you build it, they will come, or if you build it, it will happen for you. So stop paying your money to big box gyms. Stop paying your money to these gurus. Stop looking outside and look inward. Take that money, take that effort, and build yourself your own space. It can be in your garage. It can be in your basement. It can be in your backyard. If you're not rich, don't worry about it. You can start on Facebook Marketplace. I use Facebook Marketplace all the time. There are no shortage of gyms going out of business. We actually, Joe, we're doing some renovations on our gym, and we got some horse stall mats for the flooring. It's like a real good secret. You buy gym flooring, it's super expensive. Horse stall mats are like $50 a piece. They're 4x6. They're great, but you can buy 5 or 6 of them. But you can sometimes find them on Facebook Marketplace for $25, $30. If it takes you a month to find them, you got to check the marketplace every day. Who cares? It's a project, and it gives you purpose, and it gives you hope. And then you can find some dumbbells. One of the most rewarding experiences of my life, Joe, was building my garage gym. Found a couple of horse stall mats, found a couple of dumbbells, was really excited one day when I found like a tower to do my push-ups, pull-ups, and dips. I got a squat rack for $50 once. You can just start. And I pieced it together, Joe. You've seen the evolution because you visited a lot of my home gym. Pieced it together over years, but build yourself a space, a man cave, a gym, a whatever. Get some posters printed out, put them on the walls, get some artwork, paint it yourself, do the drywall yourself, learn how to do a project. I promise you it'll be the most rewarding experience of your life, and then start to use it. And here's the kicker. You'll want to show up because you built it. You'll be happier because there's a sense of pride that you built it with your own hands. You built it, you put all this work in, so you're more likely to use it and work out. And then you'll get more fit, and then you'll be happier. Then you'll be healthier. You'll have more energy. You can invest a little more. I had a TV on the wall in my garage for a while where I could watch the Sunday football game and do some exercise. It's just a place. It's like the equivalent of Al Bundy's No Ma'am Garage. Yeah. If you don't know that reference, Al Bundy's a guy in the Midwest. He sells shoes, miserable in his job. He's miserable in his marriage, and he has this garage. It's like his ultimate man cave, and they show it every couple of episodes. But that can be your place, Joe. That can be your man cave. That can be your happy place.
I built my gym. It started off as a COVID project because I ran a CrossFit gym, actually 2 different gyms for a long time. And I sold just before COVID hit. And I decided to build a garage gym. And I took your advice and didn't just bare bones it. I actually, I took different awards that I had throughout my life. I've got like my black belt certificates from Taekwondo, from Kondo. I've got a bunch of like competition medals I earned from my fighting days. And I built little shadow boxes, and I put like my Taekwondo team poster in a shadow box, and I hung that stuff all on the wall in the gym so that it was very, very personal to me. Kind of my place. Like, why am I hanging on to these old, Taekwondo medals from 20, 30 years ago? It's like, this is why. So that I can display them. And does anybody else care? I don't know. It's not that important. But when I stand in that space, it's unique. It's special. Everything that's hanging on that wall has a story that I like to tell. I've got an FBI hat, like the kind of hat they wear when they're going on raids. I have a story behind that hat and the people that I trained and how that came into my being. And so like that's hanging up there. And so even if I'm not working out, I can walk into that space and that is mine. And I built it. And hey, as long as I'm here, I've got a bench, I've got a barbell. Let's do some work.
Well, and I will tell you on that note, every dude that I've ever met has a box, has a desk, has a shelf, has a little corner of their house that's theirs. Their wife's not allowed to touch it. They put their stuff up, and it's stuff they had. Maybe it's like their high school track medal. It's like just stuff that FBI had that would mean nothing to somebody else, but means something to them. They got a couple of old baseball cards their dad gave them, like it's their place. So build yourself a place, build yourself where you can practice some self-improvement, build yourself a place where you are in 100% full control, where you can experience failure, you can experience defeat, you can experience hardship, you can experience struggle, all those things. And you can figure out how to overcome it and then have all the good feelings that come along with that. And the last thing I'll say, Joe, before we end this podcast is, if you think that only transfers over to the gym, you're insane, because those skills of overcoming that struggle, that failure, that defeat, those will transfer to your marriage. They'll transfer to your job. They'll transfer to parenting. They'll transfer to you dealing with depression and anxiety. Like, it's such a productive way to live. And it's
that hierarchy of needs, right? The physical stuff is at the bottom of the pyramid. You've got enough food, you've got enough water, you've got enough air, right? Now, like, what are you going to do with that? And everything builds off of that very physical thing. So if you're taking care of yourself from a physical capacity, the other things are a lot easier to manage. But if you're trying to go from the top of the pyramid down, like this is like trying to build the pyramids upside down, right? Like you have to build the foundation first, because that capstone sits on top of all that other stuff.
And what happens when you stop having a goal or a purpose? I'll tell you what happens. You die. Like, Joe, there's stats out there that are scary, but there are an inordinate amount of firefighters and police officers that die within 5 years of resigning or retiring. Yeah. Because they just don't have a purpose anymore. Like, you had this great purpose and you had nothing. There's a lot of athletes that are miserable right after they retire, because your whole life's been predicated on winning or losing, and have this ultimate goal and you're not part of the club anymore, and you're out and you're lonely and you're scared and you don't have a goal and you don't know what to do. Give yourself a goal. Set your goals, smash them, learn how to fail, learn how to struggle. Like, working out is so much more. And listen, I love having a six pack. I love having pecs. I love having, I'm not going to lie about that. It's a great side effect that you're going to get if you work hard.
That's it, though. But it's the side effect,
not the most important thing. And that's how it will save your life. So if you're 40 out there, you are miserable, you are unhappy. And I've seen people, Joe, and you've seen it too, that walk into your gym, they're kind of slouchy. They don't have good posture. They're not confident. There's this dream they have that they really want to go after, but they're scared. And then they start working out and they fail and they fail, and then they succeed and they get that glimmer of hope, that glimmer of confidence, that glimmer of excitement. And then that grows and it grows. And pretty soon that sparks a fire. And now they have the courage to leave that job they hate.
Yeah.
They have the courage to go home and change their relationship with their spouse. They have the courage to go after what they want. And it all started literally from a bench press or a squat or a deadlift.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. So if you're looking for the secret, do it yourself. Stop looking to other people. Look within. And I want to add, Joe, it's the ultimate form of rebellion.
Yes, it is. I agree.
I get it. You don't like the government. You don't like the message they send you. You don't like big pharma. You don't like blah, 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 blah. You know what the ultimate form of rebellion is? To be fit, to be capable, to be a person that can't be controlled, to be a wolf instead of the sheep, or whatever analogy that you want to use. But actually be that person from the inside out. If you believe that stuff, be that person from the inside out.
Don't be the guy who talks that way and then can't even see his own dick. You know what I mean? Nope. Nobody's impressed by a guy who's bigger around than he is tall.
Yep. That's it. It's that simple, Joe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's all we got today. The Be Real Podcast, Bobby Maximus, Joe Cebula. Listen, we're the place where we're going to tell you the truth, real information from real people. Now, one more thing. You can support us Get the word on the podcast out. It's a great listen. It's enjoyable. It's funny. It's charismatic. You get a lot of real information that can help your life. You like how I just pumped our tires like crazy, Joe?
I love it. I feel
Listen,
good.
buddy, listen,
keep going. Keep going.
No one's going to love you if you can't love yourself. That's just
Amen.
that's just a reality. And one of the greatest poets of our generation, Whitney Houston, said, self-love is the greatest love of all. So I embrace that, Joe, and I am on the self-love train. But you can thank us by sharing this podcast. We didn't give you ads. We didn't give you codes. We don't make you read through a bunch of stuff to get an affiliate code so you can go buy our stuff. Just share the podcast with at least one person. That's our ask. And stay tuned for the next episode. We got a great one coming up.